All right, grab your favorite mug. It's time for Coffee with Your Retirement Coach. Welcome back to Coffee with Your Retirement Coach. Today with me behind the clipboard, Nicholas Yeomans. Nick, how you doing, bud?
Doing great, Aaron. So glad to be here with you, buddy.
Man, it's been a great week.
So good, so good. Right around a great holiday. You know, this was one of my grandmother who passed away a year ago. It was one of her favorite holidays.
Oh, yeah, really?
Yeah, very Irish.
I like that.
Yeah, her maiden name was Dylan. St. Patrick's Day was always a big deal to her.
I love that. I love that. Well, and as even between us, like we've gone out, we've taken the girls out. It has been a big priority. We put a pin in St. Patrick's Day, find that pub, try that thing out.
Oh, yeah. Well, one of my favorite foods, really, I love shepherd's pie.
Oh, God.
Oh, man. And do you know the difference, Aaron, between shepherd's pie and cottage pie?
No.
So one is ground beef and
Yep.
one is shredded lamb.
Oh, okay. Well, one of our planners this week, his wife sent in shepherd's pie for us that was lights out.
So good, so good.
Now, on the home front, you guys have another pretty interesting tradition with you and your girls.
We do. So we believe in good health, nutritious meals, all those things.
Most months of the year.
However,
Yeah.
we've got a tradition in the Yeomans household. The month of March, we go to Costco and we buy the biggest boxes of Frosted Lucky Charms that you can buy.
Hey, whatever makes you happy.
You know what? The girls love it, especially my youngest. Oh, my gosh. I think she probably has a box hidden under her bed.
No, I think that's great. Now, listen, I read something in USA Today, and I don't know if I fully shared this with you yet, but I have to bring it up. Did you read the articles about the horse named Lucky?
It sounds like a story I want to hear.
Okay, in the city of Los Angeles, an owner takes out a horse.
You already have me messed up with
I know. I don't think that's where. Yeah. But it's a true story. There was a horse named Lucky, and their owner took them out for a ride, and they found themselves in a sinkhole.
Okay.
This is a true story. You can look it up. USA Today, just from the last couple of weeks.
Sinkhole in L.A. To me,
You're back.
I'm back.
The rider was able to get away unscathed. Poor Lucky.
Oh no.
Found themselves in the sinkhole up to the neck, and they had to call the LA Fire Department.
Oh my gosh.
From what I understand, like 50 firefighters, first responders came to try and help this horse.
First of all,
Yes.
I love animals.
Yes.
However,
The taxpayers' burden. I'm with you.
hold on. 50 firefighters.
And from what I understand, like there was considerations of cranes and helicopters, but then they were worried that they would hurt the horse, that they had to figure out a way to coax the horse out under his own power so that they didn't hurt the horse.
Sure.
And they were finally able to do that. And after they inspected the sinkhole, what they think happened was there was just a tremendous amount of rain at the time, and it was an old, failed septic tank that caused the sinkhole.
Oh my gosh.
Buddy, that's a crappy Lucky story.
Oh no.
Okay.
Oh no.
I bring this up for a reason,
Yeah.
and not just St. Patrick's Day.
Sure.
And since Randy's not with us this week, I'm going to be humble and bring
bon voyage, Randy.
travel well, sir. You've earned your time off.
Travel well.
I've had something, and it happens from time to time, but it's happened enough here recently that I'm just left wondering how to better prepare myself, how to better navigate these conversations. I'll talk with clients, especially new clients, and we'll talk about certain situations. Like we onboarded a client recently, and I was talking to them about their required minimum distributions. And they said, well, they've never taken them before, and it's not been a problem.
Oh my gosh. You're kidding.
Nick, and I'm explaining, hey, listen, if you don't take these, you can actually incur a 25% penalty for not taking these. Well, it's not been a problem so far. They've been really lucky, Nick.
You know what, Aaron? For all of our listeners, if you walk away from this episode with one thing,
Yeah.
luck is not a plan.
Luck is not a plan. I had a client where I was explaining to them, this is a new onboarding client. They have a property that they have inherited from their parents, but there's going to be some probate issues, some things that they were trying to figure out. And so they're trying to work through it. There's some steps in there. And we were just talking about, hey, there could be a step up in basis. How was the home owned? And they just weren't interested in the conversation at all. They're like, our cousin, they were in a similar situation and they sold their parents' house and didn't have any problems. They didn't have to worry about cost basis. They didn't have to worry about whether the trust, held the property revocable, irrevocable. They didn't really have to worry about that. So I don't see why we should have to.
Aaron, I hope our listeners take away one thing. Luck is not a plan.
Luck is not a plan.
Gosh.
And it's also a horrible name for a horse. But Nick, how do we navigate that with someone? How do I respectfully tell them, luck, they were lucky. You might be lucky, but that's not a plan.
Aaron, it makes me think of what do you really want for your family? Because at the end of the day, I want good stewardship, right?
Right.
And, I think about it in context of good, better, and best.
Yeah. Yeah.
For me and my family, I want best. I want best case scenario. The government is not on my side in this.
Right.
And what we've got to think about, why don't we focus and tailor this towards tax for a minute?
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So if we were to think about this from a tax standpoint,
yeah.
I love my country.
Yes.
Love Uncle Sam.
My favorite uncle.
I don't know about that. But if Uncle Jeff's listening, Uncle Steve, love you. Uncle Tony, shout out. But here's the deal. I don't want Uncle Sam to be my biggest beneficiary.
Right.
And if all we're relying on is luck, that is the thing. Hopefully this works out. Hope's not a plan, right?
Yeah.
I hope I'm lucky enough like my cousins were. I hope that I just, we don't have to deal with this.
Yeah.
Well, what if you're on the other side of that coin?
Oh, man. What if you're the cautionary tale?
You might not have the stress today, but here's what I know. I've been on the other side of that coin enough to know that I don't want to be on the other side of that coin.
Yeah.
That's bad. That's not good planning. That's not good stewardship. So for the people that want best for their family, much like I do, and I know you do.
Yeah.
Tiffany, the boys, you want best, right?
I do.
Well, we've got to take steps to put a plan in place.
Yeah.
And I think, Aaron, that's what you've seen, especially as you've been here part of the firm is, putting a game plan in place where people can experience best for themselves
right.
and best for their family.
Right.
And when I think about this, it always comes kind of back to taxes.
Oh, man. So often.
Yeah. So one of my questions is this.
Yeah.
So let's say I'm meeting with someone for the first time. There's a few questions I ask. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Number one is, how happy are you with your current tax bill? Do you think you're paying just the right amount? Do you think you're paying less? Or do you think you should be paying more? How many people approximately do you think I've had that said, I think I should pay more?
Nick, I know all the ones that I've sat in. That is not the case.
Zero.
Yeah.
Over 20 years, I've asked this question at least the last 15.
Right.
Zero.
Right.
So then the question whittled down is about right, or should, maybe I should be paying less.
Yeah. And I've seen conversations come up, we want quality roads.
Right.
There's infrastructure that needs to be taken care of, but for the most part,
it's about 80% of the people I interview that they would say, I'm paying too much tax.
Yeah.
Right. And so if we kind of have that understanding today, and we think in terms of where our deficit is today, we think about the government spending money, we think about all these things, I start to think about, do we think we'll be in a better tax situation in the future or the worse? And I know that you are aware of a really big thing that's coming up
Oh, man.
that could end up hurting a lot of people.
Buddy, these tax laws are sunsetting. And we have got people that don't want to hear anything about. They want to put the head right in the sand.
So the AKA Trump tax cuts, right?
Right.
Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. When does that expire?
2025.
2025. Aaron, what year are we in?
We're in 2024. This is not a way far off thing. This is not something that we're talking about like doomsday prepping. This is a very real situation that we're going to find ourselves in really soon.
So, Aaron, we're filming or recording this late in the afternoon.
We are.
So it's Coffee with Your Retirement Coach, a.k.a. Bourbon Edition.
This is true.
All
this
right.
is true.
And as I'm thinking about this,
Yeah.
okay, just took a sip. I'm thinking about this.
Yeah. Oh boy. What's it gonna take for us to end up in a more favorable situation with the sunsetting, Nick?
You have 2 years.
Yeah.
2 years. Think about this. I said I ask a few questions, right?
Right.
So how happy are you with your tax bill, essentially? But the second question? The second question is, when was the last time your financial advisor or financial planner reviewed your tax return?
Yeah.
So if I was to survey, maybe let's say the last 50 people I interviewed, let's just do that. Let's not do 100 or 200. Let's just do the last 50.
How many of them say never?
Aaron, I've had 2 people literally in about the last 6 months that said their financial person reviewed their tax return or looked at it. And in both of those instances, Aaron, it was when they started the relationship. So it wasn't an annual review of their tax returns or anything like that. It was like they looked at them one time when we set things up.
Gotcha. Okay.
So when I think about that, Aaron,
Yeah.
How in the world could I give you financial advice and not understand your tax scenario? How could I do that?
No, not prudently.
Right. So that's the second question, right? Here's the third question.
Right.
What is your tax plan? Some people might tell me they've got a financial plan. Some people might tell me that they have a portfolio or an investment strategy or a plan.
Yeah.
But do you know I've never had a client tell me they had a tax plan?
Yeah. Taking the boxes of receipts to the CPA once a year is not a plan.
Not a plan.
That's prepping at best.
Sure.
It's loosely using that term.
And here's the thing. I love working with our client CPAs.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, the thing is, they're such a trusted advisor. CPAs perform such an important role.
Yeah.
And I use a CPA. I love my CPA. He does a great service for me and my family, like in our business, right? Like he's awesome. Okay. But the problem is sometimes we view our CPA relationship different than it actually is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So, I've heard it said that CPAs are really history teachers.
I like that. Scorekeeper is the other one that I've heard, but I like history.
Right. So they're reporting or they're scoring what happened in the prior year.
Yeah.
And they're helping you fill out the most appropriate tax forms.
Yeah.
But for many of our wonderful CPA colleagues that we collaborate with all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. They aren't generally asked, and they generally don't offer for many of their clients proactive like tax advice as to what you should do for the next 3 years, 5 years, etc.
Right.
You didn't engage them for that.
Right.
And many of them, that's just not what they do.
Yeah.
So really what we're talking about is a separation, right? There is this distinction between a tax filer,
mm-hmm.
right? Which is important. It's needed.
Yeah.
Right. I need it personally. Like it's important.
Right.
And then there's the tax strategy side, the tax plan.
Yeah.
And Aaron, as we just talked about, hoping things work out, right?
Yeah.
Hoping I get lucky.
Yeah.
And I don't have to worry about that. That's not a plan.
No, I agree. And Nick, I feel like so many people don't realize that these CPAs that they are in relationship, it's like a sports car that you only drive to the grocery store. Like, I mean, they're able to really give you a robust knowledge to cater to your personal experience that can help your tax outlook be so much more optimized. But we're just taking to the grocery store.
I love that. I love it. You know, so one of my favorite sports cars of all time, one day I'll buy one, okay? I love Porsche 911s.
Yeah, you do.
I do.
You always have.
I always have. I love them. I mean, I love the idea of the flat six engine,
Right.
especially some of the older models, the 993s, the 964s. I mean, even the 997s, you know, the shorter, smaller body style. So if you're an enthusiast, you understand what I'm saying.
And thank you, Toro, for helping to scratch that itch in the interim.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's right. I did rip one through Turo. But, you know, the thing is, you know, if I think about like the performance capabilities of a car like that,
Yeah.
right? The 0 to 60 time, its top end, you know, speed. I mean, the performance. I mean, what that car's really capable of. Between my house and my office, I don't know, it's about 12 miles.
Right.
You know, 12, 13 miles. The average speed limit is 45 miles an hour. On the way to the office, there's not one place where it's above 45. However, a few places where it's 35 and a few places where it's 40.
Fun.
That car can go 0 to 60 in, you know, 4 seconds or 3.8 seconds, whatever it is, right?
Right.
The newest ones, you know, just shy of 3.
Yeah.
But I don't have a speed limit. You know, it's 45 miles an hour. You know what else will take me 45 miles an hour? Is a Camry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Toyota Camrys, right? One of the longest lasting cars on the road, or the Toyota 4Runner. One of my favorite cars my wife and I ever owned.
Right.
Toyota 4Runner. Honda Civics, Honda Accord.
They can all do it.
They can all do 0 to 45 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Right? I don't have one place where I can really experience top end speed.
Yeah.
However, I understand what its capability is.
Yeah.
And some of us don't understand the capability of the financial, tax, and estate planning professionals we work with.
Right.
Right? We kind of hope that they're going to navigate and give us what we need, but if we don't ask the right questions, we don't get the right answers.
Good, better, best.
And it's hard.
Yeah.
Right? It is hard because, you know, if you didn't have any assets, one, you're probably not listening to this. Two, you know, it's something you likely did not experience in your family's generation, like your parents' generation, right? Like you might be listening to this and be first generation have anything.
Yeah.
So it's not something necessarily that you were brought up with. If you're a middle-class millionaire out there, as an example, you're probably first generation. That's been our experience.
Yeah.
So you got to think different. You've got to do things different to
Right.
set yourself up for success.
Yeah.
And part of that is really a tax plan, a tax game plan where you're thinking 3 years out and 5 years out. What position do you want your assets to be in at that period of time? Right now, Aaron, one of the biggest challenges we have is this divide between our House and our Senate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Republicans and Democrats. I'm going to ask you, Aaron, what do you think the probability is between now and 2025 they're going to come together and find a new tax solution?
Buddy, I don't think I'm that lucky. I don't think I've got that much hope in my heart.
End of 2025, we
Yeah.
go back to old rates. We lose certain deductions. Standard deduction looks different. You've got all these things. We did a survey of roughly about 30 clients. You know what we found, Aaron?
Yeah.
The average client that we have today, mostly middle-class millionaires, they're going to pay somewhere around $2,000 to $5,000 more in taxes.
Significant.
I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not $20,000 more.
Right.
It's not $50 more. But for our typical client, it still hurts,
Yes.
right? So what do you do between now and the end of 2025 to set you, your spouse, your family up for success when you think about tax? And again, getting lucky thinking that our Congress and our Senate are going to get together and kind of work things out. They're going to shake hands, hug necks, just pound through this and figure it out. Probably not going to happen.
Probably not. I didn't find any 4-leaf clovers over the holiday weekend, and I don't even think they make rabbit feet anymore. Peter got a hold of that.
Peter got a hold of it. So, Aaron, I guess when I'm thinking about this from a tax perspective, I'm not looking to get lucky.
Yeah.
I want to be very intentional. I want to seek out wisdom, get sound counsel, and I want to navigate our financial future in such a way that I know where I'm headed.
Yeah.
I know the percentage of my assets that I want to be tax advantage or tax free a few years from now.
Yeah.
So we're taking intentional steps. It's great to grow our money. Like, that's important. Like,
Right.
we should try to grow our money.
Right.
But are we growing our money in the right vehicles, the right tools? Are we using the right vessels to get the best tax outcome we can?
Well, and Nick, is there any situation in the future, is there any scenario in the future where building up tax-free assets or taking advantage of things like qualified charitable distributions, is there anywhere in the world that that's not going to be a great place to sit regardless of what happens in the outcome of future elections or what gets passed on the Hill or not?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, right? So you always have the unknowns. Okay, right. So, I mean, let's think about something really, really simple, like doing like a Roth conversion.
Right.
Right. So I've got money in an IRA or a 401k. I convert it to a Roth. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, when would that not make sense?
Exactly. It's great planning considering what is on the horizon with the sunsetting of the taxes, but it benefits in every direction regardless of what happens.
Well, Aaron, except for one.
Uh-oh.
Except for one.
Tell me.
What if they cut taxes?
Okay.
Right?
Right.
All right. That's a huge, or in Donald Trump's voice, huge. It's a huge probability that doesn't happen. Now, I don't know the future of tax rates. Anyone who says they know, they're lying. You
Right.
won't know until it happens.
Right.
However, I'm not a betting man, but if I was, tax rates aren't lower in the future.
Right.
They're higher. Aaron, I got to ask you, right? One of my favorite presidents was Ronald Reagan. Okay? Did a lot of good coming out of the Cold War. I mean, so much about him. Great speeches, great talks, encouraged the country in so many ways. Great president, my opinion. Everyone's got a different opinion. That's my opinion. But one of the things he's noted for is cutting the highest tax rate of the time, and it was a big cut. Do you happen to know what those tax cuts were?
No.
You ready for this?
Hit me.
At that time, the highest tax rates were approximately 70%.
Oh, wow.
And not everyone, most people loved the fact that he cut the highest rate to 50%, 50.
Right.
Aaron,
It's
crazy.
It's all about your perspective.
Right? There's only been roughly 5 times the highest marginal income tax rates in our country have been as low as they are today.
Right.
And yes, certain deductions and tax credits and all that stuff is somewhat nuanced and different today than it was then. But I think that's the theme. It's always changing.
Yeah.
The tax code's always changing. If you're listening today, remember the tax code is written in pencil.
Yeah.
They can erase it and change it anytime they want, and they do.
Yeah.
And we've seen that since COVID. They've changed the tax code half a dozen times. So, I joke around with some of my colleagues. I say, Aaron, do you know what my job security is? They keep changing the tax code.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's my security. So, anyway, I know we've talked a lot about luck today and how that's not a plan. If you're listening today, a coach's advice to you, formulate your plan.
Yeah.
Make sure you're working with someone who knows what your current tax situation is, your projected future tax situation is, so you can devise a plan to really keep the most of what is yours and not be so generous to our uncle.
Nick, that's fantastic advice, and I really appreciate you taking the time to share that, buddy. I think there are so many of us that we've gotten mesmerized by how much taxes we could save this year and absolutely give no consideration to lifetime taxes. I think we've probably all been guilty of that at one point or another in our lives. So this is great.
If I was to leave our listeners with a final thought,
Mm-hmm.
in Middle America, if you are really good in terms of thinking about your taxes, here's the question you ask your CPA. Mr. Mrs. CPA.
Formally.
What can I do to save money on last year's taxes? Right? Now, if you're asking in this tax year, they're going to, maybe if you qualify, they'll tell you to put a little money in a before tax IRA or Roth IRA or something like that. It'll be nominal, but that's what they'll tell you.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a little bit better and a little bit ahead of the curve, here's what you'll ask them. You'll say, Mr. and Mrs. CPA, all things considered the same, what could I do this year to save more in taxes? So that's like level 102 thinking.
Yeah.
Right? However, Aaron,
Mm-hmm.
if you're ultra affluent, you ask a radically different question. And I'm going to suggest this is the question we all should be asking. Mr. and Mrs. CPA, Mr. and Mrs. Financial Professional, what could I do to save the most money in taxes over my lifetime?
That's awesome.
Different question, different way of thinking, different paradigm. However, if you start thinking like that, think about the legacy that you can leave on the charitable organizations you care about, the children and the grandchildren that you care so deeply about. Think about the impact, massive impact.
Yeah.
And all it had to do with was a different question.
Man, Nick, this has been a great conversation, and it kind of leaves me wondering if we could even further delve into luck is not a plan when it comes to estate planning. Luck is not a plan when it comes to your assets under management. My mind has been reeling as the conversation has unfolded today.
I love it. I love it. You know, it's interesting. We could do that even with, Aaron, you ready for this one? It's almost a 4-letter word. No one likes this word.
Yeah.
No one likes this word. You ready?
Yep.
Insurance.
Oh, man. Yeah. Risk
is not a plan.
God, risks and liabilities. I mean, it just, yeah. It's not. It is. Luck and hope is not a plan when it comes to your insurance. Nick, we may have to make this a series.
We may have.
Buddy, I appreciate your time. We hope you enjoyed today's show, but you may have questions for our coaches, and they can be emailed at connect@yourretirementcoach.com. If you know someone that needs to hear this episode, we encourage you to share it. As a reminder, the content of this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only and should not be construed as advice. On behalf of our coaches, we want to thank you for listening and for being coachable.